People understand that. We talked about at the beginning of the episode how water's level.
Hmm.
Everyone understands that. I mean, in fact, it's required in certain manufacturing. Like I said earlier, with surveying, with architecture, with engineering, they use this tool called a level, with a little water inside of a bubble area to show when things are level, right?
Hmm.
So it's very important. So let's just show you here what even in mainstream TV series how they talk about this topic as well.
There, inside that shiny surface on the bottom, that is liquid glass. For 10 hours, the molten mix is superheated behind thick walls to allow gas to bubble up and out. Bubbles drive glassmakers nuts. After all, nobody wants to look out a window you can't see through. There is only one way to create plate glass without bubbles, and more importantly, flat on both sides.
If a window isn't flat, it'll distort your vision, like a wrong pair of glasses. But making flat window panes is hard, and it used to be done by blowing giant glass bubbles, cutting them open, and laying them flat before they solidified. But they didn't end up perfectly flat. So since 1959, glass has been made by pouring molten glass on a river of liquid tin.
The surface of any vast, undisturbed liquid is flawlessly flat. Tin ingots are melted down, creating that perfectly flat surface. The glass pours onto the tin and immediately begins to cool.
Tin and glass don't mix. Like oil and water, the lighter glass floats on the denser tin. And the result is a system where the liquid glass and liquid tin start at high temperature at one end of this giant river, and they cool. They're cooled deliberately until at the end, the tin's still liquid, but the glass is solidified.
Compared to glass, tin's melting point is low. By the time it reaches this stage of the assembly, the glass hardens, floating on top of the molten tin like driftwood on water. Still very hot, as in 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit hot. The glass moves down the line in one long continuous sheet. It stretches a quarter of a mile, and because of its length and temperature, it's surprisingly elastic and strong enough to really beat on.
This glass almost as hard as you want, and you won't break that glass. It's extremely strong and it's pristine.
Steve, I think you've actually proved your point there. So from here to there, you need to bring it down about 100 degrees?
100 degrees, and that's why we have such a long cooling conveyor, is to allow it just to cool down naturally.
A robot then cuts this long ribbon of glass into slabs that run about 12 feet across.
These long pieces of glass have been cut, and in a moment they'll be packaged and then shipped to their distributors, where they'll be turned into windows.
Really love that quote. The surface of any vast liquid when undisturbed is flawlessly flat, they said. And they depend on that for their job. It's not just something to say. And I thought it would be, it would be less interesting if they were only making sheets, 6 feet, 9 feet, maybe 12 feet long. But they said that they have like a conveyor belt of one continuous sheet that's a quarter-mile long inside that warehouse.
That's what I was going to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, and my brother-in-law is a surveyor, and I asked him several years ago. I was saying, hey, when you're surveying 1 mile at a time to set up for a large factory like that glass plant, where they'll do a quarter mile, a half a mile. Sometimes factories like big car manufacturing plants, like the Ford factory in Michigan, is a mile long. So it means a surveyor has to come out before that building slab is poured, and they have to measure off to show a flat surface for the foundation to be laid for that length of measurement, right? So just that, as you saw in that video clip that you presented, just the glass itself is a quarter mile long, super flat and undisturbed. And then it goes into another part of the factory. So I'm guessing the factory is much bigger than just a quarter mile. So that means that all of that was surveyed as flat. That has to be flat. There's no curvature in that, what they're doing. So I asked my brother-in-law, so like, hey, if you're surveying for a building of that size and it has to be, it's like 2 miles in total diameter and you're having to survey everything and it's all flat, what if you just like took the records and showed, okay, well, this was the land that was surveyed for this property. It was 2 miles in length. It's flat. And then the property next to it's 1 mile. It's flat. And the property next to that. Like, so like if you got people doing these surveys, just put them together, how many, you get 40, 50 surveys before you have 100 miles worth of incredibly flat land. Just like, we would talk about with the bodies of water on the oceans, right? How they're 70% of least is what they tell you, right? And so how could it possibly be curved if all that we observe, both land and water, is constantly flat? Or where you see land across a flat body of water, like the mountain record you showed earlier from 275 miles away. It just doesn't make sense, Wes. I don't understand. The only thing I can make of it is that we were told when we were children in the crib that we lived on a ball. And they even put a little mogul with hanging little Saturn and Mars and Venus and Earth and little, spinning above our head with nice little tune. That's the only thing I can think of. What do you think?
Oh, I'm just lost in it all. It's a lot to consider, right? I mean, I've been pondering it for going on 3 years now, and it's still just mind-blowing to think that if they can convince us that we can't even trust what we observe to be true, what we feel and experience and can test, measure, repeat, prove to be true, combined with what the Father's word says, if they can get us to just completely abandon all that, that's the very foundation of the ground we stand on. That's our very place in creation. Then they can pull over anything on us. And so it's part of the Great Awakening, part of why it's such an exciting time to be alive, because of things like this and how many people are waking up to it.
That's true.